Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Mackenzie Lambert here, your host for Mack the Movies. In case you were not aware, I gave notice on my social media that due to my recent change in work schedule, I will now be posting new videos on Fridays instead of Mondays. Trust me, from here on in, I will put them up a lot earlier in the day. Today, we continue our look at select films of the Criterion Collection. Previously, we took a look at the Sidney Lumet classic, 12 Angry Men. This week, it's the directorial debut of one of cinema's visionary luminaries, Guillermo del Toro's Cronos. Legend tells of an alchemist who invented a device that would allow for immortality. He invented the device in the 1500s, only to be killed in the early 1900s when a building collapsed on him. His body disappeared and evidence of his work faded into folklore. Cut to the present with Jesus Gris, an antique dealer. He comes into possession of a statue of an archangel that was rumored to be associated with the alchemist. Jesus investigates the statue only to find something inside, a gold mechanism in the shape of a scarab. He hides the scarab shortly before the arrival of Angel de la Guardia, the son of a local businessman. Angel is sent by his father to look for any and all of the archangel statues. Angel's father knows of the legend of the alchemist and his technology. His father hopes to find the means of immortality so to prolong his own life. Meanwhile, Jesus accidentally activates the device and it cuts into his hand. Soon, he finds that the device does prolong the life of the user, but at the expense of the physical being of the user. They are doomed to become a vampire from using the device excessively. Cronos was the first feature film directed by Guillermo del Toro and released in 1993. The early 90s was a period of genre exploration among a specific set of directors. Around this time, you had Terry Gilliam, Guillermo del Toro, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and Alex de la Iglesia release films with similar genre-swapping tendencies. Gilliam ended the 80s with films like Brazil and Baron Munchausen, which gave way to films from the other aforementioned directors like Cronos, Delicatessen, and Action Mutante. In Cronos, we have a Parisian soundscape by Javier Alvarez that is befitting of Jeunet's French films more so than the Mexican setting of del Toro's. In return, you would have a little girl dressed in red, similar to Cronos, play a big part in Jeunet's City of Lost Children, as also does Ron Perlman. Cronos works great as a different take on the vampire myth. Personally, I take a liking to films that present twists on traditional figures of lore. It's part of the reason why I'll gravitate to a film like Reanimator because of its grand guignol spin on the Frankenstein mythos. With the vampire, I will have a preference for the likes of The Night Stalker with Darren McGavin or Martin from director George Romero. Night Stalker was a study of how people would react to the discovery of vampires in the real world. Martin was a clever deconstruction of the vampire mythos, as well as reflecting the growing disenchantment towards religion. Cronos deals with vampirism in a manner that shows the dark side of the prospect of immortality. The immortality is at the expense of one's physical being. Their skin rots and they have a thirst for blood. This trade-off has its roots in the like of Dorian Gray or the scholars of the floating island in Gulliver's Travels. Dorian Gray has their soul ruined from immortality, while the scholars are consumed by the quest for knowledge and their bodies age to dangerous degrees of elderliness. I also couldn't help but feel like Del Toro was partially influenced by the short-lived TV series The Immortal, which had the similar premise of a man who had the ability of prolonging life, and then must evade those who would use such an ability for ill will. From the very beginning of his career, Del Toro made it clear of his love for classic monsters. He was raised on the Universal horror films of the 1930s and 40s, with Bela Lugosi's Dracula being one of the marquee characters. One of his first toys was that of the Wolfman, famously played by Lon Chaney Jr. Look no further than his acceptance speech at the Golden Globes in 2018.
Since childhood, I've been faithful to monsters. I have been saved and absolved by them, because monsters, I believe, are patron saints of our blissful imperfection, and they allow and embody the possibility of fail and live. For 25 years, I have handcrafted very strange little tales made of motion, color, light, and shadow.
Even the title Cronos can be connected to the Hammer horror film Captain Cronos, Vampire Hunter. The cast of the film further elevates the material. Federico Lupe as Jesus Gris brings a lot of heart to the film. His tender moments with his granddaughter Aurora make the fate of his character all the more tragic. She also stands as his moral compass, the Clementine to his Lee Everett. Cronos is a fantastic film that showed the promise that Guillermo del Toro has fulfilled many times over with latter films like The Devil's Backbone, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, and The Shape of Water. From the very beginning, he had a strong visual aesthetic that made him all the more a marvel of a filmmaker. I highly recommend this film. And that finishes this look at Cronos. Thanks for watching. What is your favorite Guillermo del Toro film? Let me know in the comments. For the next entry in the Criterion Collection series, we'll be taking a look at the French thriller from Henri-Georges Clouzot, Diabolique. Until then, this is Mackenzie Lambert with Mack the Movies. Take care, and have a good weekend.